Hello, my name is Chinaza Chukwunweike, and I'm a software engineer. And I'm super excited to be taking you on this presentation today. And before we begin, I just want to apologize for not being able to make it in person. Just had a few emergencies to, I just had an emergency to take care of. I wasn't able to attend in person, and I do apologize. Okay, so let's get started. Let me just open my slides and then we can kick off. Okay, so our presentation for today is titled Cracking the Tech Job Market, a practical guide to landing roles. And like I earlier introduced myself, my name is Chinaza Chukwunweike, and I'm a software engineer at 23. And I'm happy and excited to be taking you on this presentation today. So let's just get started. To get started, we all know that the tech job market is something else right now. The tech job market is competitive. The mass applications are doesn't seem to be working anymore, and the job requirements are actually on the rise. But then one thing that I actually say to people is that the demand for skilled tech talent continues to grow because the reason is because technology keeps evolving, thereby increasing the chances and increasing the number of roles that are available. It keeps refining different roles. There is AI automation engineer, there's AI engineer, there is a role like web design went from web design to front end engineering to product engineer. So it actually evolves, thereby increasing the demand for skilled tech talent out there. The goal of this presentation is to enable you, to give you that step-by-step guide to landing that particular tech role that you so desire. And when we're talking about landing the tech roles, there are goals to this. What is the goal we're trying to achieve? The first one and most important one is to land that tech job, right? And to be able to get that job, we need to be able to provide value to the potential companies. And to provide value, you need to be able to solve a particular problem. So you're providing a solution to these potential companies, thereby earning some money. And how do we achieve these goals? We're going to use the approach. And what is the approach? The approach is the inside out approach. With the advancement of technology, recruitment is no longer done the same way. AI is being used to recruit. AI is being used to scan resumes. And for some applications, AI bots are being used to apply. You can see a LinkedIn application and you'll be seeing 100 applicants, a job that was posted like a few minutes ago, and then it has 100 applicants. So there are AI bots out there that are being used to actually apply to these roles as fast as they appear, and this causes an influx of applications. So this is not the time to be dabbling into different job roles that don't really connect. This is a time to um, follow an approach that gives you the required result that you're looking for, and that is the inside out approach. And the thing that I see most candidates doing is to follow the outside in approach, whereby they apply to jobs and then wait for the responses. And then when the responses come, they apply again. And then when they get it, unfortunately, they apply again. You're doing things in a kind of passive approach, whereby you're waiting for the jobs to come and then waiting for the job to be posted, and then you apply for it, and then you wait. And when you get a response, you go again. So that approach slows down the whole momentum, and it doesn't, most of the time, it doesn't actually bring up the required um, result or outcome that we're trying to achieve. So this insider approach allows you to apply strategy while at the same time bringing value, right? This approach goes from understanding the role you want to actually apply for, to analyzing the job market and finding out where your skill has to match up to that. Finding out the skill gap between what your skills are and what the skills in demand are. And then all it goes all the way to getting you that role. And to apply this particular inside out approach, we must apply strategy in order to cut down the outside noise and get the main goal, which is landing a role, right? And to do this, like I said earlier, is all about strategy. Strategy. I like to define strategy as an intentional step to achieve a particular goal. So strategy is a set of or a series of intentional steps that you take to achieve a particular goal. That's what I like to define it as. And for this particular approach, we are going to go by these 5 strategic steps. The first one is to identify the target role. The second one would be to build a magnetic resume. The third would be to leverage job platforms, for example, LinkedIn, Indeed, Read, or any other job boards that are being used for that particular role in your particular country, and we're going to be leveraging those job boards. And then the next step is to prepare for these interviews because the last thing you want to do is to go to an interview unprepared. And then the last but not the least, networking. So we're going to delve in deep into this to be able to understand how can we apply these strategies to give us a better standpoint, a better stance, and a better position to land the job that we want and to land that particular role. So we'll be looking at identifying the job role. You want to actually, following this inside out approach, you want to understand what we want. What role are you targeting? We don't want to be applying for roles that don't actually connect. If you're applying for a data admin role today, or tomorrow you're applying for a project management role, tomorrow you're applying for, the next day you're applying for cybersecurity role, the next day you're applying for an IT support role, then the next day you're applying for another role altogether that doesn't actually have a connecting point. You want to apply to roles that don't spread you out too thin. We don't want to be spreading ourselves out too thin because if you also prepare for these for these interviews, you would be learning these skills. And if you were to spend 2 hours on each, that would be spreading yourself out too thin. So what we want to do is to pick the target roles that we're looking for that has a close connection. So if you're applying for front-end engineer, you're looking out for product engineer, you're looking out for web designer, you're looking out for UI UX, roles that have a connection, right? Roles that have a connecting skill set that won't limit or reduce the time you apply to learn these things, to learn the skills or to prepare for the interviews. So it's better to actually to put your energy into one thing and get it done and to put it across different things and none is achieved, right? So we want to actually clarify our job career direction, right? We want to research job descriptions and find out where your skills match that, where you match, match your skill set to the market demand. Find out what gap there is with your skills and the skills that are in demand or the skills that are there, and find out how you can bridge that gap, how you can close in on that gap. And then you can choose a short-term or long-term track. By short-term or long-term track, like an entry point. There are entry level positions, the roles that you're looking for. So if for instance you're looking for a software engineer role, and there are entry points like entry-level software engineer, graduate role, graduate software engineer, like small entry points that you can actually use to get into that particular space and land that job. Yeah. And that leads us to our next thing, which is build magnetic resume. You would want to actually be tailoring your CV to each job applications that you do. So you should, in your resume, you should highlight achievements with matrices. right? And keep your format clean and ATS friendly. This actually works hand in hand because a clean formatted CV is actually an ATS friendly CV. So if your CV is all spaced out, it's not jam packed together because that would give it the ATS problems in reading your CV. If your CV has columns, it may not be as clear to the ATS as to which one to read first, where to go to after that. So it is recommended to go top-down approach. So you're going top-down rather than going columns, right? And while you're doing that, you want to showcase relevant tools and technologies that align with that job role you are applying for. That leads us to the very next one, which is leverage job boards. Now, for this, we'll want to be using verified job boards for our applications. I have been in situations whereby I will click on a job board. I will go to a job board, and then you see a role. Then you click on the link that takes you, that says like apply, and then it takes you to another job board. And then you click on that, it takes you to another job board. So that is like a cycle. So if you can identify the verified job boards where you can actually see roles to apply to, so you're not just wasting your time going from one job board to the other. And while you're doing that, you'd want to filter the date that the job was posted. So it is highly recommended to filter 24 hours. Within 24 hours, the job was posted. So it gives you a higher chance of being moved on to the next stage of the application process. And then while you're at that, you would want to reach out to the job posters of those roles after applying. And then you would want to actually set job notifications for the roles that you want to apply for. And another thing I wanted to note about job boards is leveraging LinkedIn. So if you're optimizing your LinkedIn, not just to put yourself there, but to show that you have value while you're putting yourself out there. So you need to have a strong headline, specify your role, the skill sets that you have, and in your executive summary, you're able to clearly communicate who you are, what you stand for, what your role does, what your role is, and what exactly do you offer, what value do you offer. When you're highlighting this, you're highlighting the recent projects you're doing, or the recent project that you've done, and the achievements. Have you gotten any certifications? Put it there. Have you gotten any kind of recognition anywhere? Put it on there. This increases your chances of being visible and showing that you have value. And while we're doing all of this, once we actually be applying to these roles, you would like to tailor your CV or your resume to match job description. And you can also go ahead and apply on the company websites whereby they have these roles and you're particularly sure that they're open. And then while we're doing all of this, preparing for interviews is one of the most important steps in this strategic approach, right? It is something that I usually recommend to people, is to prepare while you're applying. While you're applying to these jobs, you're preparing for these interviews. You could practice technical interviews, technical questions, and it's the same across board if you're applying for a particular role. So you prepare for these technical interviews. You use STAR storytelling method, whereby you're able to clearly communicate your previous experiences, answer questions clearly, and show that you understand what you did and how you were able to achieve that. And you can replicate it when it arises in their organization. So STAR approach actually helps you to clearly communicate your answers or your responses during the interview or anywhere at all. And then you want to actually prepare questions to ask the interviewer. Now, so for some, there might be situations whereby you say, "Oh, I don't want to ask anything. Let's just go. I don't want to be too, forward." That's not being too forward. Asking questions shows the interviewers that you were listening, that you actually want to work for them, that you want to understand how they work. So asking questions gives the other person an idea that you were actually paying attention during the interview. And then another thing is to do mock interviews. This helps to boost confidence. So you can do it with your peers, with your friends, with your family, someone to just ask you questions in a kind of interview setting. If you don't want to actually go through an individual or a real person, you can do it on platforms like Exponent, whereby you can do it with an AI. There are AI interviews, and there's also a peer-to-peer interview section on there as well that you can actually use and select a time that is suitable for you. It works on weekends as well. So you can pick a time, pick a date, and it matches you with someone who is training or who is practicing towards the same kind of interview you want to do, like be it behavioral, data structures and algorithm, first interviews, like different types of interview stages. So you just have to pick the one that is suitable for you in the time that's suitable for you, so it matches you with someone. So mock interviews actually helps you to boost your confidence. And that leads us into the next step, which is networking. And I cannot overemphasize how important networking is. And to network, you need to actually be connected to people, right? To be able to network, you need to first of all, put yourself out there, attend meetings, meetups, attend conferences and hackathons. And truth be told, you actually taking the first step to network with people by being in this particular tech event. So another way to also network is by reaching out to recruiters on LinkedIn, via email, or just being in spaces where you can find recruiters and reach out to them with clarity, not to put everything all at once and overwhelm them with a very long message. Just something short, something concise, something clear, and something not too robust, right? And you'd want to actually build relationships rather than transactions. If someone is with you because of what they can gain from you, you may not be so comfortable with that person, if we're being honest. So if you're connecting with someone, if you're networking with someone, you should, rather than thinking, what do I have to gain from this person? You should think, what can I offer to this person? What does this person actually need? How can I be of value to this person? So by that way, by actually putting it in a relationship aspect, you're giving yourself a soft landing. For example, when referrals are available in your company, when jobs open up in your company, they can easily refer you to those roles. And as you're doing this, you're not just doing it because of the things you gain from them. They would refer you for the value they have seen in you. They know the value that you can bring, know what you do, what you stand for, and the value that you can actually bring to the company, right? And with all of these strategic steps, there are 3 key points. The first one being value, the second being visibility, and the third being clarity. By value, you're able to show through your CV, through your LinkedIn, optimized LinkedIn profile, through reaching out to people, you're able to show that you have value, right? That is actually the most important. But how can they see that you have value if they cannot see you? You can't really see, if you can't see something, you won't be able to know how valuable that thing is, which is why visibility is very important. So if you're able to show that you have value, be visible, and then show that you have value, they will be able to see that. And if you're able to, these 2 things stem off of clearly communicating. So if you can communicate these things very properly, if you can communicate clearly that you have value and you're visible, that would be you'll be well on your way to landing that great role, that tech role that you want and so desire. And in conclusion, navigating the job market actually requires strategy that comes from the inside-out approach, whereby you're positioning yourself as someone with high value. You're making yourself visible. You're preparing for these interviews to make yourself ready for whatever it is that is to come, because definitely interviews will come. So being prepared is very, very important. And while you're preparing for these interviews, it's very, very imperative that you clearly communicate your skills, because being able to do the job is a different thing to being able to communicate that you can do the job. So as you're taking on these strategies, as you're going through and adopting these strategies, you'll be able to land that job that you so desire and that you so deserve. And with that being said, thank you so much for walking with me on this particular presentation. And as you enjoy your conference day, meet one person, say hi to someone new, introduce yourself, and we can start our networking from there. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the conference. Bye.